You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 325. How to be powerful in divorce without becoming angry or bitter. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful brave hearts. How are you doing? I miss you. Today we're talking about something that actually came up in one of my clients' sessions today. And I thought maybe if she's struggling with it, maybe you are as well. So the real question that we were kind of looking at is, can I be powerful without being angry? Or maybe the way that you're asking it might be, do I have to become an angry person to stand up for myself? So the background here is I have a client who's going through divorce. Her ex-husband left her for someone else. And from the outside is seemingly like completely over the relationship while she's still kind of, processing some things. And she met with an attorney to start the divorce proceedings. And afterwards, she felt rather heavy. She used the word like dirty and gross. And right now, she has zero desire for her ex and zero attachment. That work is done. We've truly gotten over the ex. But now she's facing this whole like legal process part, and she's going to have to interact with him, like get passwords, access accounts, negotiate finances. And she's terrified, right, of the process. And she's worried that it's going to like turn her into this angry person. And what she told me was, Dorothy, I'm just not an angry person. I don't want to become someone who's bitter and fighting all the time. But then she also mentioned that, she notices that when she's around him, she shrinks. She appeases him. She feels like an annoyance to him. She doesn't like who she becomes when she's in his presence. So being no contact, which she has been for the last like 3 or 4 weeks, has actually been easier because she doesn't have to like deal with any of that. And now she's going to have contact, right, throughout this divorce process. And she's afraid of kind of 2 things. Number 1, she's afraid that she'll go back to shrinking and letting him walk all over her. And 2, that the only way to not shrink is to become angry. And this is the question we're really exploring today. Can we be powerful without being angry? And of course, the answer is yes, absolutely yes. But I think first, let's talk about why we think the two have to go together, why we think power requires anger. And I think that inherently we grew up believing that and witnessing that nice people get walked over and angry people get what they want. We watched our parents, our teachers, our authority figures, the women who stood up for themselves were labeled as difficult. The ones who stayed quiet were labeled as sweet. So we kind of learned this equation that power equals anger. And if you want something, you have to fight for it. And fighting requires rage, right? Especially for women. We've been conditioned to believe that the only way to be taken seriously is to match the energy of aggression. Or even if we just are showing up powerful, we get interpreted as aggressive, to come in hot, to fight fire with fire, right? But what I notice in the work that I've been doing for so many years is that with anger, it tends to burn out. My anger could fuel me for a while, but eventually it ran out. It also led to me saying things I regretted. My power was kind of handed away to people who could push my buttons and let me be real, right? My ex knew what buttons to push. So I became reactive when I was angry instead of intentional. And worst of all, I really started to believe this was just the way I was, angry, bitter, not myself. Now, my client said something super important. She mentioned I'm afraid the process will turn me into this angry person. And what I wanted to remind her is that the process won't turn you into anything. Your thoughts about the process will determine who you become in it. Ding, ding, ding. Reminder. It's not the process that will turn you into anything. It's your thoughts about the process who will determine who you become in it. So let's get clear on what power actually is. Power is not rage. Power is not aggression. It's not making someone else right or wrong so you can feel right. Okay? Power is agency. It's knowing what you want and calmly, clearly asking for it. Do I dare say demand it? It's advocating for yourself without needing the other person to validate your worthiness, and it's standing firm in what is rightfully yours without apologizing for taking up space. And I think the cool thing about all of this is that real power is quiet. Real power is quiet. It's grounded. It's certain. I want you to think about it. Who's more powerful? The person screaming and slamming doors, or the person who's calmly stating their boundary, follows through on it without hesitation, and doesn't waver in their belief of getting what they know is theirs? The person losing their mind over every interaction, or the person who just shows up prepared, clear, and unflinching? Okay? Anger is loud. Power is quiet and steady. I think anger reacts, whereas power responds. Anger gives your ex control over your emotional state, whereas power keeps you in control of yourself. So yes, you can absolutely be powerful without being angry. And in fact, you can only be truly powerful when you're not operating from anger. Honestly, anger is a secondary emotion. It's what we feel when we're actually feeling something else underneath, usually fear, hurt, or powerlessness. And when you're angry, you're already in a defensive position. You're reacting to what someone else did. You've handed them the reins in kind of your emotional state. But when you're powerful, you're in the driver's seat. You're making intentional choices about how you want to show up, what you want to say, and what you're willing to accept. My client is over her ex. She doesn't want him back. She's clear about her future. She's not attached to him anymore, but she still has to deal with him through this divorce, and she's worried about either shrinking around him or becoming someone she doesn't recognize. So the work, I want to kind of explain, here's the work that we did together that you can also utilize in case you're in a similar situation. Okay. First, we reframed the entire divorce process. Okay. This isn't something happening to her. This is something she's choosing to move through to get what's rightfully hers. She's not a victim here. She is not at the mercy of her ex or the attorney or the process. She is the one driving this forward because she wants to build her bigger and better life. And a part of that means closing this chapter properly. Okay. The divorce process is not the problem. Her thoughts about the divorce process are what's making it feel heavy. So we shifted from this is going to be hard and gross and I'm going to have to deal with him and it's going to suck. I'm going to get financially screwed. Those were her original default thoughts, right? To this is a skill building experience. I'm learning how to be powerful without being angry. And I'm building this skill set. It will guarantee I do my best job at getting what I know is rightfully mine, period. Because here's the other thing. Being powerful is a skill. It's not something you either have or don't. It's something you practice. And the beautiful part is that this divorce is giving her the exact opportunity she needs to get the practice in. We also talked about the conditioning that we have around authority figures, this like shrinking like activity that takes place when she's around her ex. Not that her ex is an authority figure, but I feel like it stems from there as children. I think a lot of us grew up deferring our authority to authority-like figures, doctors, lawyers, our parents, to anyone who seems like they know more than us. And we learned to kind of like nod and smile and not ask too many questions and not question our authority figures because, we didn't want to be a burden or we see them as an expert and they know more than us. But you're the one paying the attorney. You're the one who knows what you want. The attorney is the expert on law, which is so great, but you are also the expert on your life, and you don't have to shrink around your ex or around your attorney. You don't have to apologize for asking questions and getting clarity from your ex or the process. You get to tell them exactly what you want and how you want things to be handled. And I learned a lot of this and a lot about this through my many miscarriage experiences and childbirth and pregnancy around advocating for myself with doctors. And I love doctors, love people with, expert skill sets. This is not a diss on anyone. However, what happens to my body is eventually what happens to me affects me and me only. So I learned that, I had to learn how to make empowered decisions for myself through my health journey. And it felt so much better when I took agency over it and didn't just blindly give in to other people's directions. So even though a doctor would recommend XYZ, it doesn't mean that that's what I'm going to go with, because I feel like I know myself better than the doctor knows me, although the doctor knows way more than I do about their expertise, right? So same thing with divorce. You don't have to become angry to advocate for yourself. You just have to remember that you have agency here. You are the ultimate decision maker. You get to decide what you want. You get to ask for what you want. You get to say no to what doesn't work for you. You get to take up space without apologizing for it. So the question then becomes, how do we do this, right? How do we stay powerful without becoming angry? And here are a few things that helped my client that I hope help you. Number one, I want you to get clear on what you actually want. Before you go into any conversation with your ex or with your attorney, anyone involved in this process, get crystal clear on what you want the outcome to be. Write it down, say it out loud, even if you're afraid. Ask questions when you need more information. State what you want, even if you're afraid of what other people's opinions will be. Practice asking for it without apology. Whatever it is, own it, okay? You're not being difficult. You're not stating, you're simply stating what you want clearly, and be direct. I can't stand when people are not direct. Be direct. Step two, or not step two, but number two is separate the facts from the story, okay? Perhaps your ex left you for someone else. That's a fact. Perhaps your ex seems over the relationship. That's kind of a fact. He or she is seemingly over the relationship. You have to interact with your ex during the divorce process. That's a fact. But he doesn't care about me is a story. This process is going to be awful is a story. I'm going to have to fight him on everything is a story. And for my client, her ex probably will be annoyed. That's not necessarily a fact, even if your story is closely aligned to a fact, but it's not a fact like this. Just get clear about what that actually means for you, right? Her ex might be annoyed, but it's his own doing. He's the one that left. He wouldn't have to go through this process if he chose differently. And he's probably not even annoyed with her. He's probably more annoyed with the situation. And when you can separate facts from stories that you're telling yourself, you regain your power. You stop reacting to the narrative and you start responding to what's actually happening. 3, I want you to practice your truths about you. Inside of Get Over Your Ex, we have a workshop all about remaining separate from other people's opinions. And I have a very creative way of identifying truths about yourself that you can and will by default believe no matter what is happening in your life. And you can use those truths to stay grounded in moments where you find yourself shrinking in front of others. So come up with your truths, practice them so that they're by default landing in your body no matter what's happening chaotically around you. Number 4, remind yourself that this is a skill building exercise. Every interaction is practice. Every conversation you have is data. We're not trying to be perfect here, okay? We're not trying to never feel scared or feel uncomfortable emotions. We have to feel those things and also build the skill. Anytime we're building skills, we feel negative emotion and we fail forward. You are building the skill of being powerful, and that takes practice. If you shrink in one conversation, amazing information and we failed and we're going to try to do something different next time. If you feel anger arising, that's information. What were we actually feeling underneath that and how do we want to move through that? You're learning how to be the version of you who advocates for herself without apology in a powerful way, without anger. And that version might not be built overnight. It might take practice, and that's totally okay. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Braveheart, you don't have to choose between being a doormat and being a rage monster, okay? There is a third option, and it's called being powerful. It's saying what you need to say calmly and clearly. It's asking for what you want without apology. It's holding your boundaries without needing the other person to like it. It's staying grounded in who you are even when the other person is trying to make you small, okay? The divorce process, it's not going to turn you into someone you don't recognize. It's going to reveal who you've always been underneath all of that conditioning that told you to be nice, be quiet, and not ask for too much. And this is a skill you're building right now. It doesn't just apply to your divorce, okay? You're learning a skill on how to advocate for yourself in all types of scenarios in your future and how to be powerful. And that's going to apply to so many things. This is a skill set that is important and that you will want to learn. And this moment, as hard as it might be, is teaching you how to take up space in your own life. What? In your own life. And once you learn that, everything changes. You stop shrinking to make other people comfortable. You stop apologizing for having needs. You stop convincing yourself that asking for what you want makes you feel difficult. Okay? You step into the truth that you're allowed to want things. You're allowed to ask for them. You're allowed to advocate for yourself without becoming someone you don't recognize in the process. So Braveheart, if you're going through a divorce or a breakup that requires contact with your ex and you're scared of either shrinking or exploding, I need you to hear this. You do not have to be angry to be powerful. You just have to remember who you are. Get clear on what you want, stay in your body, and practice showing up as the version of you who is grounded in her true identity. And that is a skill set. Okay? All right. I love you, Bravehearts. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next time. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.